SoundCloud. Okay. So just start for one more second. What is a Rebbe? To give you just a very technical answer, what a Rebbe is, won't only not make it practical and relevant, but I believe that's not the way the Rebbe would want me to answer the question. Because the Rebbe was never about him. It was never about making him great. It was all about how will this make you great? How will it make us great? How will it inspire the action that is required to bring Mashiach? So therefore, the question is not what is a Rebbe in technical sense, but what does it mean to have a Rebbe? And to answer this question, we go back to the very beginning of history of the Jewish people, our Torah. And we find that the central figure throughout the Torah is Moshe, is Moses, chosen by God to take the Jewish people out of Egypt, to receive the Ten Commandments. Moshe was a tzaddik, was a righteous man. Moses was a prophet, one of the greatest, not one, the greatest prophet of all time. Yet, how do we refer to Moshe, Moses? Do we say Moshe Hanavi? We say that about others. Do we say Moshe HaTzadik? We say that about others. We call him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher. He was the first Rebbe. And what made Moshe so distinguished is not the fact that he was able to receive prophecy on a very high level, but in fact, commentary explains to us that the last words of the Torah, Le'enei Kol Yisrael, that God talks about Moses, about all the wonders that he did for the Jewish people, to bring God to the Jewish people. And you would think that's what God was so proud of Moses. That were the last words in the Torah, the last words of the eulogy, that he brought the revelation of God to the people. But if you look in commentary, it's actually very different. If you look in commentary, Le'enei Kol Yisrael refers to the fact that Moses broke the tablets. And God made God proud of Moses. Those are the final words that God finishes the Torah in tribute to Moses. Now you may ask, what's so great about breaking the tablets? In fact, that may be seen as a low point in Moshe's career. That may be seen as a negative. He couldn't contain himself. He was so upset, he broke the tablets. But deeper commentary teaches something else. What happened at that moment when he broke the tablets was he was the defender of the Jewish people. He put himself on the line for the Jewish people. And he told God, what am I, if the Jewish people will be abolished? That was closest to God. The Moshe's commitment, not about his greatness, but about nurturing the soul of the Jewish people and being connected to the Jewish people. That is what made Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu. The idea of elevating and cultivating the young souls of the Jewish people. So what was Moshe? Moshe was the shepherd that shepherded the Jewish people, as the Zohar says, the Raya Mehemna, that allowed them to elevate and bring out that feeling and that spiritual connectedness with Hashem. We look further on in history to explain what is a Rebbe, how does that work, what is this connection between the leader and his people. In the opening chapters of Tanya, the Rebbe describes it, the Alter Rebbe, as the connection between the head and the rest of the body. In fact, the word Rebbe is an acrostic. It's an acronym for the words Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head of the Jewish people. Head does not just mean a title on top of the Jewish people. We have Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. And Chassidus teaches that it's very exact. It's not the beginning of the year, not the beginning of the month, but the head. Because the head has the nerves and is connected to the entire body. You hurt yourself in your pinky. It's your head that feels it, that registers the pain and allows you to bring yourself healing. So what is a Rebbe? The head, a person, an individual who's not just concerned about their own spiritual progress, but feels each and every one of the Jewish people, and through that the entire humanity. This is what the Rebbe was to all of us. Not just a great tzaddik, not just a righteous soul, which he certainly was, but the ability to bring out within each and every one their spiritual connection, their spiritual value. I've quoted to you the Torah. I've quoted to you the Tanya. I would like to bring to you the Rebbe's own words in what is a Rebbe. And this is a very unusual, and I'm going to try to bring it up to the screen where you see the Rebbe's handwriting. This is a very unusual note that the Rebbe himself penned during the 80s when there was a court case that was challenging the different aspects of the Rebbe's relationship with the artifacts in the Chabad library. And he was asked the question, what is a Rebbe? Point blank. And these are the Rebbe's words. A Rebbe, the first and most important thing is, and the main thing, is to guide and inspire the Jewish people, beginning with matters of faith, as well as observing the laws, Shmira b'Shulchan Aruch. And these are the words, Ulaharoisam, and to show them dugma chaya b'zeh, to be a role model in what true faith really is and what real adherence to God's laws are. Ad kedei mesiras nefesh, to sacrifice their life. A Rebbe doesn't sacrifice his life so that he can gain personal spirituality. The Rebbe, in his own words, sacrifices his life to be the role model, to enable you and I and all of us to be able to bring out our faith and therefore be strengthened to do the right thing. So what is a Rebbe? A Rebbe is that shepherd. A Rebbe is the gift that God gives to his Jewish people to enable us to live to our maximum potential. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was in the Torah. That is how the Alter Rebbe explains it, and that is the Rebbe's own words. I'd like to just share a few stories. One is one of my favorites, of Geula Cohen, who was a Knesset member, I think in the 60s, and she was also a very famous journalist in Israel. And she once interviewed the Rebbe. And when she left the Rebbe, she shared these words, which I think encapsulate everything in a few sentences. And she said she met many great people in her role as a journalist. And she realized that you may be standing next to an accomplished artist and be in awe of that artist, but that doesn't make you a better artist. You may be standing right next to the greatest musician, and you would be in awe of that musician. It doesn't make you a better musician. But when you stand next to the Rebbe, a man of extreme faith, and you are in awe of his faith, it makes you a stronger believer. And that is what the commitment was, to be around the Rebbe, to learn from the Rebbe. Because if you truly experienced that, you knew that it was never about the Rebbe. The Rebbe sacrificed himself on our behalf. And I want to conclude with one more story. He's actually, I see we have Rabbi Charakov joining us in this class. And his grandfather, Rabbi J.J. Hecht, Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, was a very, very prominent figure in the Chabad community. In fact, you may say, had a very close relationship to the Rebbe. He met the Rebbe and knew the Rebbe closely, even before the Rebbe assumed leadership. One of the great many things that Rabbi Hecht would do was organize a parade for Jewish children on Lag BaOmer. And it wasn't easy to organize these parades. It would go by 770 in Crown Heights, and the Rebbe would come out and view the parade on the great grandstand and address the children at the parade. And it was very challenging to put these things together. One year, Rabbi Hecht had a particularly hard time putting and bringing this all together. And he was very down, and he was very depressed about it. And he wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him encouragement. That day, it was a beautiful parade. The sun was shining. It was gorgeous. Everybody was in such an upbeat mood. And at the end of the parade, the Rabbi Hecht was visibly excited, and he goes to the Rebbe and he tells the Rebbe, Du hast mir a Ruis geschleppt. You pulled me out of my, I wouldn't call it depression, but the melancholy, the upset, the state that he was. Dus mal ruhig geschleppt. You pulled me out. The Rebbe told him, ich hab dir nicht ruhig geschleppt, aber aufgehoben. I didn't pull you out. I lifted you up. And that was the Rebbe. The Rebbe always lifts us up to a different vantage point. When the Rebbe allows us to touch our soul and to expose our soul, he's not just bringing it out. Through that, he elevates us, allows us to elevate ourselves to the vantage point of our neshama, to the vantage point of our spiritual connection to Hashem, so that we can in turn see things very differently when we look at the world. So my dear friends, what is a Rebbe? That I leave the answer for you. What the Rebbe was to me was the Dugma Chaya, the role model of faith and adherence to God's mission and God's purpose in a way that lifts us up to see things from a different vantage point so we can be more effective and more productive in our divine mission. I hope we spend the next few days thinking about these ideas, that we can exalt the Rebbe, but that through understanding what the Rebbe wants from us, we can exalt and lift ourselves so that we can finally feel our mission, live our mission, proceed with our mission, and collectively bring the world to its fulfillment of the mission with the coming of Mashiach. Once again, I sign off and I say good evening, and I hope you have a meaningful Gimel Tammuz, an inspiring Gimel Tammuz, to inspire us to get the job done and do it well.